TIL that Willie, a parrot, alerted its owner, Megan Howard, when the toddler she was babysitting began to choke. Megan was in the bathroom. The parrot began screaming, "Mama, baby," while flapping its wings as the child turned blue. Megan rushed over and performed the Heimlich, saving the girl's life. TIL Kate Winslet keeps her Oscar in the bathroom so her guests can hold it and make acceptance speeches in the mirror without feeling self-conscious. TIL that a depressed Manchester teen used several fake online personas to convince his best friend to murder him, and after surviving the attack, he became the first person in UK history to be charged with inciting their own murder. TIL Gary Gygax's wife was convinced he was having an affair, so she followed him to a dimly lit basement and burst into the room, only to find him and his friends hunched over hand-drawn maps. Gary would go on to invent the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. TIL Max Planck was told by his professor to not go into physics because almost everything is already discovered. Planck said he didn't want to discover anything, just learn the fundamentals. He went on to originate quantum theory and win a Nobel Prize. TIL Martin Short. Steve Martin and Tom Hanks have regular colonoscopy parties where they prep together overnight and share one car on the ride to get their colonoscopies the next day. TIL that after studios refused, Monty Python and the Holy Grail was instead financed by the rock stars Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Genesis, Jethro Tull and Elton John, who all saw it as simply a good tax write-off. TIL that according to a study, strict parents can turn their kids into more effective liars because children who are afraid to tell the truth learn more deceptive behaviors to avoid getting in trouble. TIL why paper cuts are so painful is B/C at a microscopic level. Paper is actually quite rough. A knife makes a straight cut, but paper acts like a saw blade and does more damage to cells and nerve endings. Paper also leaves behind tiny fibers and chemical residues, irritating the wound even more. TIL Nintendo pushed the term video game console so people would stop calling competing products Nintendos and they wouldn't risk losing the valuable trademark. TIL that sodium citrate is the secret ingredient to make any cheese into smooth creamy nacho cheese sauce. Coincidentally, sodium citrate's chemical formula is Na3C6H5O7, nacho. TIL US Navy submarine periscope controls used to cost $38,000, but were replaced by $20 Xbox controllers. Next, drone assassination by Wiimote. TIL JFK's father Joseph Kennedy made much of his fortune through insider trading. FDR later made him chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. When asked why he appointed a crook, FDR replied, "Set a thief to catch a thief." Kennedy proceeded to outlaw the practices that made him rich. TIL Fortnite creator Tim Sweeney is one of the largest landowners in North Carolina and has been buying land for ecologically sustainable purposes since 2008. TIL Pornhub has a branch of their network called Pornhub Cares where they focus on humanitarian efforts. Some of their causes are breast and testicular cancer research, planting trees, and funding student college scholarships. TIL that about 85% of hospitals still use pagers because hospitals can be dead zones for self-service. In some hospital areas, the walls are built to keep x-rays from penetrating, but those heavy-duty designs also make it hard for a cell phone signal to make it through, but not pagers. TIL that the scientists who first discovered the platypus thought it was fake, although indigenous aboriginal people already knew of the creature. European scientists assumed an egg-laying, duck-billed, beaver-tailed, otter-footed, venomous mammal had to be an elaborate hoax. TIL a Florida brewery created edible six-pack rings that feed animals instead of killing them. TIL the word utopia is a pun. It comes from the Greek word for good place but also no place. It's good, but it doesn't exist. TIL. Japan had issues with crow nests on electric infrastructure, so they went and destroyed all of the nests, which prompted the local crow population to just build more nests, far in excess to what they actually needed. TIL Florida repealed its helmet law in 2000. In the 30 months after, helmet use in Florida dropped from 99% to 53%. The number of riders under 21 who were killed, despite still being legally required to wear a helmet, nearly tripled. From 35 to 101. Hospitalizations increased by 40%. TIL of Don Shipley, a retired Navy SEAL who has spent much of his post-service life exposing individuals who falsely claim to be SEALs. According to the FBI, there are 300 times more imposter Navy SEALs than actual SEALs. TIL, it is 100% legal to buried at sea in the USA. You basically wrap the body in a sheet with some weights, at least 3 miles from shore, and throw it off the boat. The Navy even has a program to assist veterans of the armed services. TIL that the robbery of the Federal Reserve in Die Hard with a Vengeance is so plausible that the FBI actually questioned the screenwriter on how he had such intimate knowledge of the vaults. TIL Teddy Roosevelt regularly staged boxing matches in the White House, taking on anyone he could, including professional boxers. He only stopped boxing when his eyesight was permanently damaged by a punch from his military aide, Colonel Daniel T. Moore. TIL bats and dolphins evolved echolocation in the same way, down to the molecular level. An analysis revealed that 200 genes had independently changed in the same ways. This is an extreme example of convergent evolution. TIL, a Portuguese castle enduring a prolonged siege, broke the enemy's resolve by, in a fake show of plenty, throwing freshly baked bread made from the very last flour in the castle with the message, "If you need any more, just let us know." Fearing a much more prolonged siege, the Spaniards withdrew. TIL jaywalking was invented by car companies in the early 1900s to shift blame for accidents from motorists to pedestrians. TIL that in 1833 Britain used 40% of its national budget to free all slaves in the empire. The loan for the Slavery Abolition Act was so large that it was not paid off until 2015. TIL that Bill and Melinda Gates plan to leave $10 million each to their 3 kids as an inheritance out of his $80 billion fortune. He is set to give away approximately 99.96% of his wealth to charity and foundations. TIL Konstanz is one of the few towns in Germany left untouched by the Second World War. Instead of blackout, the city would leave all its lights on at night in order to fool a light bomber crews into thinking that it was part of nearby Switzerland. TIL John Cena can speak basic Mandarin. WWE taught wrestlers basic phrases in an effort to expand into China, but Cena was fascinated by the language and learned as much as he could, even having a tutor and flashcards. TIL Robert De Niro prepared for his role in Taxi Driver by obtaining a New York taxi license and spending a month working up to 14-hour shifts picking people up all over New York. TIL that on his 20th birthday, comedian Bill Murray joked about having 2 bombs in his luggage but instead was caught smuggling 10 pounds of marijuana. He was convicted and sentenced to probation. TIL after Reagan watched the movie War Games, he asked, "Could something like this really happen?" to his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and a week later the general returned and said, "Mr. President, the problem is much worse than you think." TIL. Cats can recognize their owner's voice and tone when they are calling for them from other voices and background noises. Their brain registers the sound, but the cat just can't be bothered to respond. TIL that homework was considered hugely controversial in the 1800s and early 1900s, when physicians crusaded against it. In 1901, California even banned homework for anyone under the age of 15. TIL water makes different pouring sounds depending on its temperature, and 96% of people can tell the difference between hot and cold water by the sound it makes being poured. TIL that McDonald's stopped using beef tallow in their french fries after a wealthy heart attack survivor spent $3 million on full-page newspaper ads calling out the chain for their unhealthy menu. Today I learned about a Dutch bicycle company that put pictures of TVs on their bike boxes to prevent damage while shipping. Doing so saw an 80% decrease in damage. TIL that in WW2, pilots often blacked out in turns as high G-forces made blood pool in their legs. British ace Douglas Bader, however, did not have this problem, since his legs had been amputated after an accident. TIL that Tom Hardy was addicted to crack and alcohol in his mid-20s. At one point he said that he was out of control on drink and drugs before he turned his life around, and was lucky that he did not contract HIV while he was at his lowest. TIL. The Belly Button Biodiversity Project. Scientists examined the genetic makeup of the bacterial found in the belly buttons of 60 volunteers. One individual, who hadn't washed in several years, hosted 2 species of extremophile bacteria that typically thrive in ice caps and thermal vents. TIL in 1946, a man claiming to be a detective gave a pedestrian a camera and asked her to take a picture of a suspect. The detective turned out to be a gangster, the suspect turned out to be his ex-wife, and the camera turned out to be a concealed shotgun firing via the shutter button. TIL the most recent of Wayne Gretzky's 60 NHL records was set sometime after his 1999 retirement. His points per game average of 1.921 was second only to Mario Lemieux's 2.005, who later came out of retirement and lowered his own average, moving Gretzky to the number 1 spot.
Belly, let's go, baby.
Demonetization is dropping your rating to stop a migration of top innovation and content creation in an opposite way. I saw your new status and got inspiration to drop a new cape. On top of your face is a mock and the face of the clock is still raising. The mob is impatient, monster is late, cannot just escape. You'll drop like a cave. YouTube Ukraine thought you would make it. Past all the creators who want to get paid for their awesome creation. So take the advice of a god in the making. All I got to say is Cowberry TV gets more traffic than a metropolis. Yes bitch, that's me. And I'm still looking for where my profit is.